Hi Year 5, and we're back for another history lesson. The topic for this week is the Battle of Marathon. But before we do, we're going to learn some more historical skills, and this week we're looking at myths and legends, which ties in really nicely with our literacy topic. So what is a myth? Well, it usually contains good and evil characters. It explains how something happened or why. There are usually gods in the story, or fantastical creatures, and supernatural forces and magic are included. And it usually includes a classical opening line such as "long, long ago in a land far away," etc. Now, two famous myths that we've already looked at that contain these features would be Pandora's Box, which is about a young lady who ignores the advice of the gods and opens the box, and her defiance leads to all of the bad things in the world escaping. And the story explains why there are so many evil, bad things in the world. And the other story is Arachne the Spinner, a young lady who makes fun of the gods in her weaving and is very proud of her work and is proud in general. And as a result, she's punished by the gods and forced to be a spider for eternity, weaving her webs. Again, a story that explains how something came to be. It explains why spiders exist. And what about legends? There are many similarities, but also a few differences between legends and myths. Legends contain good and evil characters. There are usually heroes, kings, and villains. Like myths, these were passed on orally rather than written down, meaning that people told the stories rather than wrote them. But the big difference is that legends may be based on an element of truth or historical fact. And they usually refer to individual characters who take centre stage about a famous person, a place, or a creature. And two famous legends that you may be aware of would be Robin Hood and King Arthur. Now, Robin Hood was the famous outlaw who lived in the forest with a band of merry men doing heroic deeds and stealing from the evil and corrupt wealthy aristocracy of England and giving to the needy poor. And his story may be based on some fact. We have references from historical documents that talk about a Robert Hood. There is a Robin Hood and a Robert of the Hood, all mentioned in historical medieval documents. I think there are about 8 separate references to a person of this approximate name. So it's possible that a story about one of these individuals became embellished upon over the years, people exaggerated elements of the story, and we got this historical legendary hero of Robin Hood as we know it today. And the other legend would be King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table, the picture you can see on the right of your screen. So, the historical Arthur existed in the late 5th and early 6th centuries and was known as the last of the Roman Britons, and he basically fought against the invading Germanic tribes known as the Saxons and became a bit of a hero in the early chronicles by people such as Geoffrey of Monmouth and the Annals Cambriae, which was a contemporary source. But you can see that over the centuries this historical figure of Arthur also became exaggerated, and we get these stories about his wizard companion Merlin. He pulled a sword from the stone. There was a magical lady in a lake that gave him this amazing sword known as Excalibur, and he went around the world looking for the legendary Holy Grail. We see these fantastical stories that possibly couldn't be true, but they are based on an element of truth or historical fact, and they really summarise what a legend is really well. And that brings us on to today's history lesson of the Battle of Marathon. And what I want you to do today is listen to the story a little bit and decide for yourself whether the Battle of Marathon is mythical, would it be a legend, or do you think it's actually a historical fact? So if we go back to the year 490 BC, we see that the Persian Empire from the east, it's about where Iraq and Iran are, was expanding really, really quickly, and it was heading westwards towards Greece. And at this point in history, the commander Datis sails with about 25,000 ships to Marathon, which is a few miles from Athens, leaving the Athenian army outnumbered. So the Athenians go to the nearby Greek neighbours of Sparta to ask for help. Now, unlike the Athenians, who were civilised, they had democracy, they had philosophy and learning, the Spartans were a warrior society. The men were raised from a young age to be warriors. Weak children were thrown into the wild. the idea of physical fitness was present in all forms of life. So it was about a fit warrior fighting society, and they were militarily very strong. That's why Greece needed the help. And the story goes that the Athenians send their best runner, Phidippides, to Sparta to ask for help. And he runs apparently for 2 days all the way from Athens to Sparta. And gets there. Now that's covering a distance of about 240 kilometres or 150 miles in 2 days, and then he runs back. Now the Spartans are celebrating a festival at the time. They say that they can't help right now, but they will help the Athenians and send news. The problem is the Athenians can't wait, and they have a general, Miltiades, who comes up with this amazing battle plan to charge on the Persian archers before they can fire their arrows and cut them down. As a result, the Persians flee despite outnumbering the Greeks. They run away, they lose the battle, and it's a miraculous victory for the Greeks. So the story's probably historically correct. We have sources that refer to the Battle of Marathon, and it almost certainly existed, and it took place. But one thing that I would like us to look at today is the story of the runner Phidippides. Did he really run for 2 days and cover a distance of 150 miles? Well, today we're going to take our own time to conduct a historical experiment with me, Mr. Wall, to find out if this can really be done. Hi folks, so it's 9 o'clock in the morning on the Sunday, and I am about to go running. So what we're going to do is I'm going to run for 1 hour, and I'm going to go as far as I can within that hour. And what I will be using is a step counter. I have one on my phone which will count how many steps I've managed to cover and how many miles I've managed to cover within that hour. The problem is, even though it's early in the morning, it's only 9 o'clock, it's already very, very hot. This is going to be a real challenge. So, wish me luck. I will be back in an hour and we'll see what distance Hiya, 5. So, I've been running for exactly half an hour. I set off at 25 past 9 after having a coffee. It's now 5 to 10. 30 minutes only, and I'm struggling. It is so hot. I don't know how Phidippides managed to do it. He did it for 48 hours. I've done half an hour, and I don't know if I'll make the full hour. I'll keep you updated. Hiya, 5. So, I'm on the last 3 minutes. 2 minutes. I've run for an hour. I'm nearly there. Look at this hill. That's a steep hill. We'll count the steps and the distance travelled when I get back and have a shower. Hi folks, so I finished, and in my 1 hour of running I managed to cover 6 miles exactly, as you can see. 9,477 steps and 102 floors were climbed. That's as a result of the really steep hills that I was running up. So if I can run 6 miles in 1 hour, that leads us to the question of, do we think that Phidippides could have done 150 miles in 48 hours of non-stop running? So you need to do a little sum for me here. I want you to multiply 6 by 48 please, and write the answer in the comment section. But then you need to think, alright, maybe theoretically it's possible if he ran at that pace non-stop for 48 hours, but then we need to consider, is it possible to run non-stop for 48 hours? Some people would have problems even staying awake for 48 hours, let alone run non-stop for 48 hours. Which brings us to the final part of our lesson, which is, do you think this story was a myth or a legend or even a true story and a factual piece of history? So to recap, a myth is a traditional story about heroes, about the supernatural, that explains the origin of natural phenomena. Now you could suggest, I suppose, that the story of the Battle of Marathon explains why we have marathons today, a marathon today is 26 miles and gets its name from the fact that Pheidippides ran 26 miles from Marathon to Athens to deliver the good news of the Athenian victory. So maybe you might want to argue that it's a myth. But is there supernatural beings in it? I'm not sure. Or is it a legend? Is it a story from ancient or historical times about people or events that may or may not be true? So maybe you feel that there may be an element of truth to the story, maybe it got exaggerated over time and people embellished upon the original facts. Or maybe you feel that it's actually a true story and he did run 150 miles in 2 days. I mean, he was surely a lot fitter than I am. He was the best runner in Athens, whereas I doubt I'm even the best runner in our village. So that's for you to decide. If you think it was a myth, please write it on your answer sheet. If you think it was a legend, write it on your answer sheet. And if you think it was a true story, you can write that on your answer sheet. Thank you for watching this lesson. I am exhausted and need to relax.